This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring program that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. And boom, we're on. And today's guest has got Fiona Rose Diamond. Fiona, how are we?
Tired?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long night?
Yeah, ish. You know, in a new place away from home.
Yeah, the joys, babe. Huh? It's a tough life. Digital ID, which you're very big on. You've done a protest there with thousands of people. You, Dr. David Icke, and a lot of big names who spoke out against lockdown. Like massive things. You're telling people don't comply against digital ID. I'm against it myself. If I'm honest, I'm not as educated enough as yourself on it, but that's why we're here today, to give people an understanding of why not to do it. But first and foremost, how are you?
Yeah, well, I'm good. I'm tired. And I mean, I've been telling people not to comply for 5.5 years now, nearly 6 in March 2020. So yeah, it's just what I do. I've just become an activist. I've never saw my life going this way, to be honest.
Before we get into all the madness, though, I always like to go back to the start of my guests, get more of a bit of understanding about you, Fiona, where you grew up and how it all began.
Well, I mean, look, I was born in Bristol, and my family lived in Wales, South Wales, for the first couple of years of my life before my parents separated. But I moved a lot when I was young. You know, I went to like 5 different schools, like 3 different primaries, 2 different secondary schools. So I moved around a lot. And I think that's why I'm quite comfortable. I'm a bit nomadic myself, like I can go anywhere. But yeah, I mean, like I say, my parents lived in South Wales and they separated when I was nearly 3, I think. Don't really remember it. I remember I had Super Ted slippers. Do you remember Super Ted?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember the slippers. And Banana Man. But yeah, but it was very amicable. They were the best, you know. And I used to see my dad every weekend. Like, we lived in Bristol, Thornbury, just over the bridge, over the Severn Bridge. And he used to pick us up from school every Friday and drop us off back at school every Monday. And it was like just the norm for me. And I remember later in life, my grandmother had said to my dad that one thing that you have to do when you don't, you know, when you're separated and you don't live with your kids is to make memories with them. So he always made sure we were doing something. So their separation was really amicable. They were very lovely about each other. You know, we spent Christmases together. My mum remarried when I think I was 6 or 7 when she met my stepdad, and they've been together ever since. And yeah, I've just moved a lot. And, you know, I was born and raised Catholic, so I went to Catholic schools, basically. You have to be a really good Catholic to get in.
What's a really good Catholic?
I mean, I was an altar server.
What does that mean?
I used to serve at the altar in the white robe, hold the Bible for the priest, you know. It's, yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. So I used to take mornings off school to do that. And I was like the good kid coming in late because I've been altar serving during the week.
Could you ever adjust in the schooling system by being at so many schools, like with friends and being passed around? Like, could you ever get any sort of structure?
I think Listen, I was always people called me Titch. I was small, right? I'm not small anymore, but I was quite a small kid, and I did make friends easily. And my sister had a bit of a tough time. She's 18 months older than me, and she was born with birthmarks, like quite severe birthmarks. So she had, I mean, I don't remember when she was kind of in and out of hospital having skin grafts and stuff like that. And I think, you know, not that she got more attention, but as a kind of, because of the medical stuff that she was going through and being in and out of hospital, I think naturally, obviously, my mum was, quite focused on making sure she was okay. And my mum was amazing. But I was kind of, I just kind of got on with it. And I think I got used to making friends, like, changing primary school 3 times. I got quite used to making new friends. I mean, and I had to adjust. It wasn't like a choice in it. When you're like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, 13, moving schools, it's not easy. So I've always found it, I think, because I had to adjust. So I had to be able to make friends. And
How were you as a student?
I was 50-50 because, like I say, I was a good kid. I didn't really get in a lot of trouble. I loved sports. I was really, really sporty. I was the fastest runner in every school. Played netball, so I was always on the, teams. I played rounders as well, which I loved. And I was quite competitive, but I always wanted to be an entertainer. Like I wanted to make everyone smile and everyone laugh. And, that kind of reflected in school. I used to put on I'd love being in the plays and, in the choir. I used to be able to sing. I sang on Saturday actually at the protest, and that was
What'd you sing?
someone said my voice is lower than Barry White's or something. I sang Jonah Louie, Stop the Cavalry, because I wanted to end like on a, Christmas kind of high, we're protesting about something serious. But no, I was a bit of an entertainer in school. I always wanted to make my mum smile as well, because my mum went through some stuff. And so that was just me. But I didn't, I struggled in certain subjects, but I, excelled in things that I enjoyed. So like geography and art and English. But I sucked at maths. I've never been good at maths and physics. I didn't understand the point. And I was that kid that always asked, why? Anything a teacher said, I'd be like, why? I don't think I ever believed anything I was ever told.
From a young age?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good thing.
I think,
Question it. Where did you get that from?
But probably my mother. I mean, she was, my family sort of mainly Irish on my mother's side, and Celts, and my grandmother was Scottish, my dad's Welsh. And, I grew up learning about, the Troubles in Ireland. My mum's very sort of pro-freedom, pro-Irish, told me stories about Michael Collins. And she would question everything. Like the news that was on the TV, as far as I remember, what was it called? Cable. Do you remember Cable?
Yeah.
And they're like Nickelodeon and stuff, but you had all these different news channels. And she was, she'd watch Al Jazeera and RT and all these, she'd never believe anything. And she always questioned authority. I think, of course, I've got a huge amount of that from my mother.
What'd you do after school?
Well, I did my A-levels, but I got kicked out of, I got an A-star at geography GCSE, but I got kicked out of my A-level geography class because of my teacher. I don't know. I did something wrong, apparently. I don't know, flicked a rubber, something ridiculous, and got kicked out of that class and had to take up general studies, right? And I failed general studies A-level because I put the answers on the question paper. So anyway, I got 3 A-levels and I went on to university. My mum basically said to me, she's like, you're not staying at home. You need to sort of go out in the world, 18 years old. So it was a choice between joining the Navy, the military, or going off to uni. So I went off to uni and had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going in the world. When you're a kid, you think about doing things like, I want to be a vet, I want to be a doctor. And I was not massively academic. I was very creative. So I went off to uni and I started marketing and economics or something. I changed degrees like 3 times, went to Southampton and changed a lot, and then ended up getting a job, walking past a bar. You know, back in the day when you used to sort of slip your CV under the, like through the letterbox or under the door, and there was this new club opening and I had no idea what it was. And I just put my CV in, and turns out it was a strip club, and
What one?
For Your Eyes Only.
Is that what it was called?
It was called For Your Eyes Only. And there was a Thai restaurant next door that they decided they opened up later, and they called themselves For Your Thais Only. And I was just like, a bit racist.
Was that a brothel?
No, no, it was a Thai restaurant. It wasn't anything dodgy like that. But no, this is when it was like, it was just topless dancing. It wasn't like fully new club. This is back in 2003. But when I'd worked, I got a paper round and I think I was 12, and I'd always wanted to work. I'd been a waitress, in pubs and stuff. I always wanted to be a barmaid. So as soon as I could be a barmaid, I was. I just loved hospitality. So, I'd worked as pot wash, and I wanted a graft and I wanted to earn money. And when I started working in those clubs, I had no idea it was a strip club. It wasn't until I sort of walked in, they were sort of renovating it. Like the training started before I'd even been in the club, and I was like, what are these poles around? Why are the mirrors everywhere? And do you know what? I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Why did you go for uni degrees to then working in the pub game? Like, what was the minds? Did you just going with the flow, just not want to follow your degree?
I changed several times my degree. I mean, I got to the point where I was doing fashion writing. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to work, and I knew I wanted to be okay financially. And I just didn't know. I wouldn't say I was like directionless. I was kind of happy going with the flow. I don't know if, moving around and stuff. Like I'd go anywhere, I'd move anywhere. And then, I've made enough money to take myself to Australia for 18 months or so, a few years later. But I really enjoyed working. I really enjoyed earning, and I really enjoyed hospitality. So kind of my career went from working in, strip clubs, where I was a waitress, by the way, just to clarify that. And
clarify that. People in the comments saying she used to dance with me.
Fine. You know what? I learned some skills. I was the girls were amazing, but I tell you, this was before the recession, so like pre-2008. Like there was a lot of money in it, like even for waitresses. And I was like the best waitress. I had to be the best at everything. If I did something, I had to be the best. And maybe that's why when I was changing degrees, like I was struggling with it and I wasn't the best. And I thought, no, I need to do something that I'm the best at. I've got to be like the A-star student, or the best worker, or the best waitress. And that's what I was in the club. I was, the best VIP waitress. If my boss said to me, sell 15, 20 bottles of Cristal, I'd do it.
Yeah, I think with the sort of strip clubs, it's not really a scene anymore. We used to go back in the day, it was like 7th, Diamond Dolls, and we used to go, but we were all partying. Like it was just, they were busy as well.
Yeah.
And everybody sort of knew each other. That's not a fucking good thing, but it was in place. But I don't think people do them as much anymore, sort of strip joints.
I think it's changed because the licenses changed. Like I say, they weren't fully nude. It wasn't that, it didn't seem like people think about it now and they think, oh, it's quite obscene, or it's, it's very sort of low class. But it's strange to say it was a classy place. There was other clubs that were a bit more seedy, where girls would do things that they shouldn't really do. But the club For Your Eyes Only was strict, and I got on with all the bosses and all the girls. And I tell you, there was girls there that were 20 years old. One of them owned 5 houses. They had plans. Do you know what I mean? They had their plan to do this for 3, 4, 5 years, and yeah, owning houses. She's renting them out. They had plans, and they did it. I respected it because they people think, oh, they're being exploited, and not to say that doesn't happen. Terrible things do happen. But you had to be kind of together to work in that club. You had to have your head on your shoulders. Girls weren't allowed to get drunk when they were working.
More professionalism.
There were, and there was rules. You had to pay to work there. The rules made it the way that it was, that the girls that it attracted were grafters that wanted to do something temporarily to. And
Did you have to flirt with the men just like the girls just to get extra tips as well? Like just give them a little bit more effort, you know?
I was just look. I've always been a friendly person. You know, I'm quite bubbly. I'm quite entertaining. I'd always make a joke or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't. Wouldn't say there was like flirting and sitting on laps and things like that. You know, there was rules. You know, we had our clothes on. We had to serve drinks. But you know, what do you do to upsell? You know, someone wants to order a bottle of Veuve Clicquot and you want to sell them a Dom Perignon. You know,
How many girls worked in there?
oh, well, it depended on what day of the week it was.
Friday, Saturday, obviously. the
Yeah,
busy nights.
Saturday there was probably about 50 girls, something like that. Weekdays obviously a lot smaller, staggered times.
But you do tend to see a lot of people from universities going working strip joints and thinking, I'll just do this to pay my bills, but they end up giving up the degree to then just stay in the strip joint because they're making fucking 4 or 5 grand a week.
Well, this is it, and that happens. And I think, you know, we saw there was a there was a kind of unspoken retirement age, I think, where, you know, girls would make sort of less money the older they got, and there were girls that were career strippers. But you know, I have a lot of respect for them. And I think people on the outside, and they, you know, I dealt with this a lot. I didn't tell my mum for a long time. I didn't tell, you know, I was kind of, oh, what's she going to think? You know, that I've basically dropped out of university to work in a strip club, but I was making over £1,000 a week in tips.
Yeah, it was a bad thing back then working in a strip club. Like page threes and that, you see on the Sun, people getting their tits out, people would think slag. How things have enhanced now with OnlyFans.
Yeah.
What people are doing now with 1,000 men in a day, like things have totally changed and it's not good. Back then you're thinking strippers were slags just for getting their tits out. They never got fully naked in Glasgow. I don't think anyway. I think it was just
It
tits.
changed.
Yeah.
I think it was around about 2006 or 7 that they were able to become fully nude, and I think that's when the industry changed. Like it obviously changed. I think you could go to America. It depends what country you're in, but you know, Amsterdam, for example. So they were allowed to go fully nude, and I remember my boss at the time, or the boss's boss or whatever, he was on TV talking about these licenses because they changed it to sexual contact clubs, and there was no contact allowed. Men had to sit on their hands. There was rules. There was like security watching. It was really strict. So they disagreed with, you know, it wasn't a sexual contact club. That wasn't allowed. But it went fully nude, and people, you know, they want more and more. And like you said, look at OnlyFans and all this stuff we see online now.
Do you think it becomes more seedy then?
It did definitely. And when the recession hit, you know, I'd gone off to Australia for over a year and then came back to work for the same company for their club launch in London on City Road. And that was when I first moved up to London, 2008. And shortly after, recession completely changed. Completely changed.
What did you do after the strip clubs?
Hospitality. I mean, I mean, when I was in Australia, I worked on Daydream Island on the Whitsundays and the Great Barrier Reef. Like I'd been waitressing. I was an amazing waitress. It was a bit strange going, you know, people ask what my work experience was. You know, you kind of, I think a lot of the time I'd be like, oh, it's a VIP nightclub. That's how I'd sort of explain where I'd previously worked. But I'd worked in pubs and stuff, you know, lots of different hospitality roles. And then started working in hotels, and I was very good at my job. So I worked in hotels, lived in jobs like duty management, food and beverage manager, that kind of stuff. And then I found that I was quite passionate about events and weddings and putting on these special days for people. Because, you know, I've got that thing about making people smile and giving them that day. And I think, yeah, I found a little bit of a niche in events management. I loved it. So yeah, just hospitality. And then later I worked for British Airways. I was a trolley dolly.
Been in and out many jobs, just kind of travelling. And do you find that's the same patterns of sort of schooling when you're going around and round and just try to figure out what's going on and what you're trying to do?
I get bored easily.
Did you ever question the narratives back then when you talk about obviously the rabbit hole we now go down? Were you ever at that position when you started looking into certain things?
Like I say, I mean, I was that kid that always said, why? I was always asking questions. I took issue with authority or perceived authority. I didn't like being told what to do by anybody, really, even bosses. I thought if you didn't do my if you don't know how to do my job, if you've not done it, don't tell me what to do. So this is one of the reasons why I didn't last in certain employment, because I always took issue with, senior management who had no idea what I was doing. But I think with my mother being the way that she was and being Irish, you learn things about history. Like we weren't, you know, very anti-royal. Like we're not royalists. Don't like the royal family, and you know, learned a lot about what was going on in the world and how corrupt things are. Saw some things when I was a kid, and just didn't have a great relationship with the police, for example. My experience of them when I was young wasn't great.
Yeah, you've had the jail many times, no?
No, I mean, well, say jail, whatever. I've been in custody for periods of time. Charing Cross Police Station, I think I was there. Was that Charing Cross I was at? I can never remember. I've been to so many in London over the last several years, but I say this, I've been doing what I'm doing now. So, human rights activist, essentially, for the longest time. I've never been in a career or had a job. I did contract work. So, like I said, I get bored easily. And this now is what I do. And I've never stuck at something so long, but completely.
How do you get into activism then? Because I try and do my part, but for me, it's just a big game. Like I've understood it long enough now, and I went down the rabbit hole well over 10 years ago and started questioning things and looking into it. As much as it's a great thing, it also can be damaging, because life does go on. Does one voice really change the world? I don't think it changes everybody's world, but I think it can change people's world, some people's world, to open their eyes. Because once your eyes are open, it is hard to fucking close them again. And sometimes it's tiresome because you think,
Yeah.
because certain things, like with the people I interview and the knowledge that I have on certain things, there's many things I don't even touch on because it's people ain't ready either. And it's fucking madness. But how did you then get into your activism? Like, what was the steps? What was the one thing? Like you says, you were in and out of jobs, contract work, not really knowing what you wanted to do, and then the activism started. Like, what was the moment?
I don't know. I mean, I've always said I can't really explain to people why. My father passed away at the end of 2019. His funeral was the day before Christmas Eve. And this was obviously before, any sort of COVID hit this country. And I was clearing out my dad's flat, I was going to give his clothes away to charity, but he was a 5XL and I don't think they would have gone anywhere. But he was hoarding, clearly. He had like thousands of tins, which, I gave to his mate Les to take to the food bank. And my sister had come over and she took his TV, had a big flat screen TV. And then I sorted out the rest of the stuff. And I discovered in that time, I think it must have been January of 2020, UK Column, which was what I watched regularly from that point, like a news, sort of podcast thing. I was on YouTube at the time. But I'd always been a skeptic. I'd always not believed just anything straight up. I was born and raised Catholic. I was in the church, taken out of the church by my mum. So I think a lot of what I went through just made me that sort of that skeptical person, and questioning authority was, innate. But when we started hearing of what was going on in China, what was allegedly going on in China, I just called bullshit. And I can't tell you why I did. It was, we've seen, fear porn and propaganda on TV for the longest time. I think being aware of the lies that the media spins, it was not hard to tell that it was bullshit. Anyone that was paying attention should have said something's off here. Something's completely off. And I did not intend to be an activist. At British Airways, right, I was suspended at the time and they were striking over pay. And I went out and I waved a flag with Unite, but I was already suspended. Like I wasn't,
What'd you get suspended for?
The captains took my Prosecco in Texas and I called him a CUNT.
Yeah.
And then he stood me down and then flew home as a passenger and then was suspended for a long time. Again, don't care if it's a captain, don't take my wine. Like, I don't drink anymore, but don't take my wine. um
It wasn't on the job though, was it?
It wasn't on the job. We were down route in Texas having a drink. But once again, like I was a premium service expert for British Airways. I was very good at my job. I just wasn't popular with people because I would always find a way to give a passenger what they wanted. Like if they wanted a particular cocktail that we weren't meant to make, I always sort of found solutions. And I was really good at my job and I loved it. But the activism, there was no plan, and it was just being skeptical and calling bullshit and watching the fear porn. It was rolled out, 5 p.m. every day on the TV. There was this, we're all going to die and you got to stay inside and blah blah blah. And before we were locked down, a few days, I think it was on the 23rd of March or something. This legislation was made public, and we I think locked down 3 days later. And the Coronavirus Act, brought in as a statutory instrument actually, so like secondary legislation. And I read it, and it took me weeks actually to there's a difference between reading something and understanding something. And I'm not someone who speaks on things unless I really understand it, because there's other people who, I don't want to preach when if your knowledge is surface level, then leave it there. But I'd read that and they were talking about sort of pets were things. Everything was a thing. So they could destroy your things. And that included pets. They'd changed, the ways that they would section people. So you'd think, oh, if you're an anti-vaxxer, you look at it, you connect the dots and you think that you didn't write that legislation in a couple of weeks, that this was, massively pre-planned. When you read this few hundred pages, it wasn't something that they wrote in response to what was no longer a high consequence infectious disease. And then when you learn that Bill Gates was the one that basically gave him another big chunk of money and said, it is an HCID, you start going down rabbit holes and you realize that these, rich globalists run the world. And so I went out, I think, started finding things on social media and posting myself. From UK Column, I was taking screenshots on my phone, looking at the data and then posting it and talking about it. And I lost every single friend that I had, I say BC before COVID. I lost absolutely everybody. And most of my family don't speak anyway, so I don't really, I'm close to my mum and my sisters. But I lost everybody just from asking questions and being skeptical. And then there was a little rally or a protest, something I'd seen on this group called Lockdown Skeptics, because at the time we were anti-lockdown people. Went out, stood on the edge of this group around Parliament Square for not very long at all. And then the next time I went out was I think it was about 20th of May 2020, to Hyde Park, to a Lockdown Skeptics picnic. And it wasn't a picnic, but when we got there was about 100 people gathered holding signs. I remember seeing this big poster, someone had a board and it was a big poster of David Icke, and I'd not long kind of explored David Icke. But we were and then I was arrested for gathering in a group of more than 2. And they targeted people that had signs. And I had a sign. I can't remember what my sign said. It says something about, tyrannical dystopia. The lockdown measures were...
Yeah, I never paid one fine because I was doing the cold water stuff out in Balloch and Luss, and the coppers tried to pull us up at like 9 o'clock at night and gave us a fine. I thought, I ain't fucking paying that. Not one fine I paid. But people do turn against you, because I was posting photos up when I was up the mountains and stuff, and people were just saying, oh, you don't care about the old elders and stuff. And you do question it as well. I don't want to harm anybody, and I did question what if I'm wrong. Yeah. Thankfully, I know I'm not, but you do question it because fear-mongering is a thing, and that's why the majority of people fold, and majority of human beings are good. They want to do the right thing, so they're believing what their government's saying, they believe in what the media's saying, and that's where we're going wrong, because they're not questioning that they're so full of shit for so many years. But again, people just can't be asked with the fight. They just want to get on with their life, go to their jobs, do their own thing. But the majority of people in the world are good. That's the thing. That's actually where we're going wrong, because we are too good. And it's not questioning, these cunts are full of shit. Because if everybody made a stand, like, change would happen. But that's why there's so much divide, because everybody's fighting against each other instead of fighting against the real enemy. See, when you were going through sort of the changes and then getting involved with Ike, because I love David, I love his family, I think they're great. I think it's great what they do. But when did you start going right down the rabbit hole it went? Because you can completely lose yourself.
Yeah, it started pre-May of 2020. What pushed me out, I was watching people like Judy Mikovits, who'd worked with Fauci on, you know, AIDS treatment and things like that. I'd looked into the PCR test. I'd listened to Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Rashid Buttar, and I'd listened to David Icke. And because they all appeared on what was called London Real with Brian Rose at the time. He did some epic interviews. And it sent me down a path of my own research. And I discovered, you know, one of the first things I looked at was the PCR test itself. And that was, it is categorically and has been acknowledged as almost a complete fraud. And in, you know, the headlines we're seeing now, 86% of PCR positive tests were false positives. They was wrong. Everything was based on this diagnostic tool that was never a gold standard, that the inventor, Kerry Mullis, had said, do not use that to diagnose anything, because it will be positive for anything. You've ever had a cold, you have anything wrong with you at all. It will be positive when it's run at a high cycle threshold. So I was looking at the science. I actually looked at it and studied it and asked questions. People were sticking these swabs up their noses without asking any questions. And it was mind-boggling to me. So they've got us into this situation where it was the perfect time, because we are robotic. We do trust in authority. I say we, I don't, but many people do. Blind faith in government, blind faith in the NHS, blind faith in your consultants and doctors. No one asks questions anymore. And that became more and more apparent. You only had to open your eyes, ask a question and look. And there was people that were skeptical and talking about it at every single point. Even before the jab was rolled out, people were saying, scientists and doctors were saying, it's not safe, it's not effective. And you have to sit there and wait 5 years to be essentially vindicated with all the harm that we know has happened. So it didn't take a genius. Okay, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an academic. I looked, I researched, I watched the statistics every single day. So I'd watch that doomsday 5 p.m. reporting from, you know, Boris Johnson, stay home, stay safe, 35,000 new cases, blah, 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 blah. Like on and on and on, just so I could compare at the end of the week the statistics with the ONS. Flu and pneumonia disappeared. It wasn't a thing. People that were dying in catastrophic car accidents, fatal car accidents, getting hit by a bus were being put down as having COVID or dying of COVID or with COVID. Remember this whole discussion? Everything was baseless. Everything was unscientific, and people only had to ask questions and they didn't want to.
What is the effects now of it? Obviously, we know about turbo cancers and miscarriages and heart attacks. Like, there's so much. I don't know the stats now, if I'm honest. I've kind of came away from it all. It was just that sort of that period. But what was the major side effects for people who did get it?
Well, like you say, turbo cancer, cardiac arrest, stroke. It depends on what kind of jab people have had. So a lot of my work was centered around working with and platforming those doctors and scientists who were skeptical. I mean, even making a film that was torn to pieces on Panorama, but really badly. It was absolutely brilliant. But a lot of the experts that I platformed had warned about this unsafe gene therapy, this mRNA that had never been, you know, used in humans or shouldn't have been used in humans. And, you know, there's people, you know, Professor Angus Dalgleish has talked about the cancer causing ingredient SV40. There's things, it's fact now that there's harmful, you know, elements and ingredients that was picked by some biochemist, picked all the ingredients, put it together, and it's a toxic cocktail. And Dr. Mike Eden, the ex-VP of Pfizer, has spoken about this. So a lot of the harms, I mean, AstraZeneca was, the harms were excessive. That was pulled from the market after about, I think, 18 months. But they made batches in India that were the most harmful. And that was the clotting, the GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome, and clotting, strokes from the AstraZeneca, which wasn't mRNA. It was attenuated, you know, genetically modified chimp virus.
I had David Icke. He says people were getting injected with Bluetooth. He says they were doing scans over people who had the vaccine, who had passed away, and they were getting a Wi-Fi signal from them.
Well, yeah, we've seen a lot of stuff that's been said that's come out as true. I think people should probably listen and research and don't parrot stuff that you hear. This is where I'll admit I'm not the expert. Dr. Carrie Madej has spoken about things like graphene oxide and the nanoparticles that are in the Pfizer, the mRNA jabs. Like I say, Dr. Mike Yeadon has spoken about things. There's disagreement in the scientific community. Even what we know is that they are not 100% safe and they are not 100% effective because they weren't meant to be.
Yeah, it's scary because Pfizer's been here over 100 years and never had one cure. Never cured anybody.
That's not the point, is it, of big pharma? I think that's it as well. I mean, you go down rabbit holes. They want you to feel crazy. Conspiracy theorist, even the term. It's like I've been branded absolutely everything. I don't think there's been a name that I've not been called. But when you think for yourself and ask questions and research, you are allegedly a conspiracy theorist. It doesn't take very much at all. And I've got a lot of respect for people that put their head above the parapet and speak out. And when it comes to the science was there. There was people before the jab was even rolled out. It was rolled out on the 7th of December, 2020. Right? There was people talking about it immediately. As soon as Bill Gates said, we need one safe vaccine, you don't have a choice. All this stuff that we were seeing, it was unfathomable. And then people were begging for it because they wanted their freedom. They were begging for it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. People were told you can't work, you can't travel. I think the travel was the biggest one. People just crumbled.
I traveled without PCR tests. I traveled. People didn't read the fine print. It's this head down, blinkers, just, don't look at anything else apart from, I'm going to go and do my work. And everyone loved the furlough. They loved being paid to sit at home and do nothing. And I get frustrated about it because nobody wanted to ask us questions. Actually, not many people wanted to ask questions. There were so few of us. But the science was always there, right? There's no question like, it didn't come out 3 years later. It didn't come out in 2022 when certain people decided they were going to, go from promoting this toxic cocktail on TV to then saying, oh, I've just discovered the data. Why did you push something that you didn't have the data for in the first place? So I get angry because I campaigned against the rollout. I went to mass vaccination centers where, 15, 20, 30,000 people were queuing to get jabbed. And I cared about humanity and knew what was going to happen. And what happened was what we said was going to happen. And everything that's come out since in the COVID inquiry not made a difference because they've said, oh, we need to lock down sooner next time. Even though lockdown's unscientific, social distancing's unscientific, masks don't work.
Yeah, wearing a mask in a restaurant and then taking it off when you sat down is absolutely
have a Scotch egg and a pint of beer and you'll be fine. You don't need a mask.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. When you actually look at some of the videos and photos of people were having these screens and they could put their arms through with plastic gloves and cuddling each other. I'm laughing, but a lot of people were fearful. A lot of people didn't see their kids being born. A lot of people didn't see their loved ones passing away.
It ruined lives. People killed themselves. It ruined lives. People couldn't see their loved ones dying in care homes. The way that they were treated, they were essentially culled. There's so much that we probably don't have time to even talk about. But all of this evil that was happening, it was getting more and more evil. There were more and more lies. And there were people speaking out. They were completely censored and completely silenced, or not completely silenced because there was people like me. But we went from, 100 people, maybe, Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner, me getting arrested with 19 other people, 13 of us charged. I was the first one charged and tried for gathering in a group of more than two. And then that's when I realized I was doing something right. So from May of 2020, I knew I was doing something right anyway. It was the feeling, but I started organizing, leafleting, getting out in the community and working with people to organize protests. First one we did was in Trafalgar Square. 20 random people-ish came together. And it was one of the best things I've ever experienced was that day, in that there'd only been a couple hundred people, in the build up to that. And then August 2020, Trafalgar Square, 29th of August 2020, it was absolutely jam-packed, shoulder to shoulder. Now I know the capacities of everywhere in London now, but there must have been there must have been at least 100,000 people there, or 75,000 at least. It was uncomfortably full, in the best possible way. And it just, that moment was like, you knew that you weren't alone, but the people that you were generally meeting were, that, like, okay, there was a lot of different people, that I'd met before that, but this massive crowd of people that, yeah, it was just incredible. And that spurred us on to, go out more, hug each other. We weren't masking. Sorry, the whole country wasn't wearing masks for the first 5 months. It was in June of 2020. Everyone was told, put a mask on. Like, you were told for 5 months, literally on the news, it doesn't work. They don't help. Don't wear them. It doesn't matter. Masks don't work. And then suddenly they mandate them, and then they mandate them in shops. And it was an act of defiance to go out without any mask on your face. That in itself was an act of defiance that we used to get all hell for, especially in London. And then you got people that live out in the sticks somewhere that say, oh, well, I went for a walk and I didn't. And I'm like, mate, try going out in London and organizing a protest and getting arrested because you believe free people should be free and that everything was baseless and unscientific, which it absolutely was.
What do you think of Bill Gates?
If he was hung in front of me, I don't think I'd even tug on his legs because I'd want it to last a very long time. I think that about a lot of people. I'm pissed off. I'm angry. And I'm angry that people still can't see it. And my patience is nil. I want these people, and I shouldn't, because people tell me about faith and that, it will be God that serves justice, that I should just tolerate this, that, and the other. But no, I don't believe in that. I want some earthly justice for these people. And that's why I started my law degree. I believe there will be earthly justice that we, the people, will bring about.
Do you think these people in power who have damaged other human beings by trying to gain more money and trying to gain more power? Because Pfizer made over 100 billion in, I think, 2 years or 3 years. Like, it is a lot of money through other people's misery. Just imagine if your loved one actually got that jab and actually passed away from it, but yet the doctors told you it was heart attack or some other disease, or they've got that turbo cancer. But imagine, that's what scares me, that why the streets aren't packed for better change, for better protection, for people. Like, it is surprising. I think a lot of people have woken up to it, but on the other hand, I think other people just you do get caught up in your own life as well, and you actually forget because everything fizzles. Which
is what they want, but people probably don't want to remember who they were in that time, because people were, I every single day I went out without a mask on. Every day I went and I didn't walk in the way the arrows in the shopping center were telling me. I got thrown out of places by security because, again, I wouldn't wear a mask. It was every day there was defiance, and there was hate, and the online hate, and the friends and the family that would, ridicule you. I lost, like, say, all my friends. I had a lot of friends, and I lost everybody. Thankfully, my mother, my sisters, my stepdad watched what I was doing from, the early days and convinced them never get one of these jabs, and they didn't. And I love them for being strong and, not bowing to it, because they weren't me. Like, I was brave and fearless and probably reckless, and because I didn't value my own life. Essentially, I was willing to go to prison. I was willing to die for the cause. And I think, you look back, people have to remember. They have to remember and not bury their head in the sand now and make out, ignore it like it didn't happen. For a lot of people, it's a time in history that was very unpleasant, and lots of people lost, and there was personal harm, there was personal injury that people like me tried to stop. I tried to save lives. I was at the mass vaccination centers for 8-9 hours a day with some very good people, a handful of good people. There might have been hundreds of thousands of people on the streets marching and protesting and being free, but they weren't trying to save lives at mass vaccination centers, right? That was hard. And I did that. And then when the harm started happening, I platformed the COVID jab, injured and bereaved, because what we knew was going to happen happened. So I'm angry. People are going to be angry, but people want to forget about it. And it's the biggest turning point in history where it became very, very clear that nobody in a position of perceived authority cares about you at all. You are nothing. You are a miserable, useless eater, a consumer for a period of time. And they do not care about you, and they never did care about you. And my biggest takeaway from 2020 onwards is that every single thing that they did, every single thing was a test of compliance. How far could they push people? They had behavioral scientists at Sage in the government, and we pushed for those minutes to be released months and months later, these meetings that they'd had about how they could engineer compliance with the nonsense rules that they'd put in place. Like, they were manipulating people. They were using psychology and behavioral science to convince people. I know what people were up against, but come on, like, we existed. And I think that we just all need to admit, like, what it was.
I don't want to scare people who's watching or listening,
Sorry.
but no, it's just for, do you think the people who got it, they've kind of got past the worst, or do you think it's still in a system where possibly more side effects could happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, this is where I'd suggest that people listen to the right people. Don't, there's a lot of fear mongering out there. There's a lot of like statements made. If you've had Pfizer, for example, you are going to suffer this, that, and the other. Dr. Mike Eden, for example, the ex-VP of Pfizer, has talked about the fact that, if you've had sort of up to sort of 3 or even 4 of Pfizer, you're just, don't panic. If nothing's, if you've not faced any side effects yet. AstraZeneca, it was within the first 6 months. Within days, most people would see a severe sort of side effect, and death, clots. That would happen immediately after and within 6 months. So if you've had 1 or 2 or, a couple and you don't remember what you've had, I mean, do the research, take accountability for your health and everything, but don't believe all the fear mongering. There's too much of it out there, but listen calmly to the experts like Dr. Carrie Madej and people that offer detoxes and things like that. So if you've had, I just don't think people should panic. If you're here and you're good, just don't take any more. That's why it was booster after booster after booster after booster. I mean, we must be on 13, like 12, 13 now. And there's people that have had that many.
Yeah, it is scary, but I do think it's only a test run for bigger things to come, and I think it's scary to see how the full world went into lockdown for a flu virus, and I can do understand why people followed suit, because they don't want to see bad in people. But when they're partying in Christmas in Downing Street where you're all locked up like a fucking caged animal, you've got to question those bastards.
They're the ones every day at 5 p.m. on the news, every single day, telling people what to do and telling people how horrific it is. And they didn't have, they were inside that building, and they're the ones with the information. And you don't think that you're being lied to. Matt Hancock said, and it was in the COVID inquiry, WhatsApp messages, when do we deploy the new variant? Like, all of this has come out, but people want to leave that time. They want to leave it there. But you need to look at that to see what the future is going to look like. And I think this is when, you go down rabbit holes and, you realize that there's sinister forces that are essentially running the world, and, our governments aren't really in control. They're kind of puppets to these shadowy puppet masters. And I'm not saying like invisible people. I mean, I'm sure you can go deep, right? Like I say, I don't, we've talked a little bit about faith and stuff, and does anyone really know what's going on? I'm not going that deep, but these NGOs, these unelected, bureaucratic globalist organizations that are unaccountable are, they're the ones handing down. Who the hell's Bill Gates? Why is he's not a scientist? Why was he on, like, people actually sat there and listened to this guy who's a computer geek. Like, what does he know about any of what he was talking about in 2020, and people believed him? 21, 22, whatever. But yeah, we need to look at that time to know where we're going, because like I say, everything was a test of compliance. I think there was more to it than that. like Dr. Mike Eden would say, that the injectables were toxic by design, and that they wanted to cause infertility, to make people sick, to destroy their immune system, and to ultimately make sure people couldn't procreate and would die prematurely. It's a toxic cocktail. It's not an accidental. The ingredients were picked, they were chosen.
Digital ID.
Okay, yeah.
You done a protest a couple of weeks ago. Thousands of people on the streets marching against it. I'm against digital ID myself. I'm not majorly educated on it, but I just looking at other countries and the way they're controlled with it, I think it is quite scary the way things can go. But what is digital ID for people who don't know, first of all?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at it from the outside, like say that you've never, heard anything about it, what a lot of people would have obviously seen, Keir Starmer say. So the first thing that people heard about it was Keir Starmer saying on the 26th of September, I think, that everybody will have a mandatory digital ID, if they want to work, to prove their right to work and their right to rent, to apparently, allegedly address the issue with illegal migration. So I think everybody knows that, and that has been said. Now, again, going back to 2020, when you realize what's going on, these, like I say, unaccountable, unelected NGOs, and what their plan is, and what their plan has been, and it's written down literally, you can see the destination. You don't know how many stops there's going to be along the way, but you know that they have this agenda and things that they want to achieve by the year 2030. So everybody knows what Keir Starmer said. And a lot of people think, they look at the Tony Blair Institute. Tony Blair's been pushing it for a long time, national identity cards, didn't quite get it through. But it's not just a digital version of you on your phone. Now, I know technology is very clever these days. It's not just your credentials, your face, your age, your date of birth on your phone. That's not what digital ID is. That's not what I'm referring to. It comes from the United Nations Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, right? They've got 17 goals that they want to achieve by the year 2030. 193 countries, member states, signed up to this in lockstep, agreed that we would endeavor, these permanent civil servants that then become these ambassadors that represent us, the people of the world, that all get together and decide, right, we need to do this thing. So it's all about, on the surface, humanity, sustainability, and no poverty, and all these lovely flowery things. And within those goals, there's target 16.9, which is a legal identity for all, including birth registration. So they essentially want to make sure everybody has a legal identity, but it's not just people, it's also things. So people might think, like, why, are you fussing about, just basically a digital version of yourself? Because it doesn't end there. And when
which is a fair question.
Yeah, exactly. I have no problem. Technology, for example, I've got a smartphone. I don't use biometrics and things because, again, they've got us used to using the biometrics, the iris, the face scan, the fingerprint. So they've gotten us used to all this for this purpose. Okay, this is why that they train us for years and years of to
normalize
it. And surface level, like, we have a national insurance number. Like, why do we need more and more credentials, or more, a digital version? And you can talk about the safety, the potential for hacking, the fact that, one login's not safe. That's all very surface level. But the people need to understand what the plan is that's written down in black and white. That isn't, it's above the level of nation. It's something that's being rolled out worldwide. And there's been countries like Estonia, for example, like test countries for this.
Yeah, because I've wrote down the countries. So this is the countries that already have digital ID. So in Europe, you've got Estonia, Denmark, Finland, Spain, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal. In Asia, you've got India, Singapore, South Korea, China, Japan, America. You've got South America, you've got Mexico, Chile, Brazil, Colombia. Africa, you've got Ethiopia, Nigeria, Morocco. The Middle East, you've got Saudi Arabia, Israel, the UAE. and you've also got Australia. Like, that is massive countries already.
Yeah, but Ethiopia, I mean, there's countries in there that you think, can we just, I mean, look at the digital infrastructure, right?
But is that to just
I think,
test the grounds in some of these countries as well?
yeah, I mean, well, they test a lot in Africa. Australia, for example, like now in Australia, from I think it's 27th December, everybody has to prove who they are digitally to access the internet, right? You have to have your digital verification. 16-year-olds are banned from social media.
I think
It's
that's a good thing.
You think that's a good thing?
I think kids shouldn't be on social media. I think it's a fucking great thing, if I'm honest. I think social media is so
But that's the
damaging
problem with it,
to the
right?
brain.
So they give something and then
Of course,
take
that's
it
the
away,
way it
right?
works, yeah.
This mission creep that began in 2021. So some of these countries, like Italy, for example, right? They've got it's not mandated in many places that you would have listed there. It's for example, interactions with the state, or like we have Gov One login, which was rolled out in 2021, which is, you want to get your passport, your driver's license, that kind of stuff, apply for benefits. One login is that digital verification of who you are. So, people have inadvertently signed up for it. I think 11 million people have used it. I've got no problem with digital things and technology at all. I think, like, you talk about AI and stuff. I think, okay, great, it should serve us, but that's not the purpose of it. And I think people need to understand the root, well, like where it's come from and what their objective is with it. And it is, like I say, that mission creep. It's like in Italy, they've got a very similar system to the Gov One login and national identity cards. And you think that's not a terrible thing, but when you know where they want to go with it, that they want to essentially tokenize every aspect of life and control every aspect of life. And again, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's literally written down in black and white. You've got this diktat that's fed from these unelected globalists at the World Economic Forum and the United Nations as this moral, allegedly humanitarian cover, because everything's about, access to justice and, equality, equity, and, to end poverty. It all sounds really, really wonderful, but it's all nonsense. They literally want every single person on the planet to be trackable and traceable and controllable. And
would that have any benefits whatsoever, say for like paedophiles and all the sick
that's
people?
what they'll sell you.
Yeah, of course, but does it have any benefits also? There must be some pros. Because we've already got phones which have everything in it, all our photos, our videos, our banking, we've got passports, we've got driver licenses, we go through airports, we've got facial recognition, we've got facial scanners.
Is choice.
Yeah, and I'm all about choice, yeah.
The difference
choice,
is choice.
But
and there's when this is why people have to be aware, because we can have this, we can have these discussions and people can sit there and think, oh my gosh, she's crazy. But that's why I've said
people will think that though.
Well, I hope not. But that's why I've created this website called mastodoncompliance.com, and on that I've got a page called The Architects. And what I've said and what I keep saying to people is know thine enemy and know their plan. And the architects, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, right? These unelected globalists. You don't have to get too crazy with it. But if you look at the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, you realize that Tony Blair, everyone keeps banging on about Tony Blair and his, Institute for Global Change. He's just that sort of front man for us. He's that front man. He's an agenda contributor to the World Economic Forum. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is a thing. It was written down in 2015. And then you can read all the goals. The paperwork is the documents are on my website under the architects. So it's written down in 2015, and everybody has agreed to this allegedly humanitarian project to make sure everybody's got a legal identity. But it's not for all these fluffy, kind, lovely reasons to catch pedophiles. That's not what this. It's not that. And like I say, the difference is choice. So people need to read and understand where it's come from to know exactly what it means. And when you look at the World Economic Forum, and I think that's where this bed of evil elite sit, and they influence policy, right? They're supranational. You're told that the UN, for example, is not supranational because it just gives recommendations and guidance and just wants everyone to be nice and, for there to be world peace, which is just nonsense. and the World Economic Forum as well, you know, who's now the chairman is Larry Fink. But when the United Nations 2030 agenda was signed up to by, 193 countries in lockstep, all agreed to it on our behalf, there was this sort of offshoot alliance called ID 2020. And this is what I'm sort of researching now, because I don't like to talk too much about things that I've not at least, done my research on. And ID 2020 has got all these, like Accenture, Microsoft, MasterCard, all these sort of tech firms and consultants and the bank rollers like, BlackRock, Vanguard and whatnot, working together to build this infrastructure. And that's where the sort of essential framework and policy is coming from. And we've seen the legislation roll out under the, Data Use and Access Act and the trust framework here. And ultimately, the goal is to make sure that every single part of your life is this digital ID. What would have been the brick card or the identification of yourself on your phone to prove your age and your right to rent, your right to work, whatever, that would have just been one token inside the Gov UK wallet. The Gov UK wallet's already rolled out. It was rolled out earlier this year, this summer with the veterans card, and the digital driver's license is coming on it. Again, to test it and try it. This Gov UK wallet is what people need to be concerned about, because that is what will host all of these different tokens. And the brick cards that they've proposed was one of those tokens. That was just one credential on your phone. Everything else will be linked to that. You've got Keir Starmer flying around going to places like India saying it's a really useful way to access your money, your taxes, your pensions, your benefits, every single thing. It's not even a secret. They want it to be known and logged and tracked. And then when you link central bank digital currency to that, which they've been trying to roll out for some time, we've pushed them back a bit with our Keep It Cash campaigns. That's where the control comes in, because it's programmable blockchain. Everything you do is tracked and traced. And this is why we have loyalty cards like Morrison's and Tesco and Amazon recommending things to us all day long, because they know our behaviors. That's why we're now starting to see carbon scores on sandwiches and food. Like, what's the carbon score for this thing that I'm about to eat? You will have a carbon footprint. You will have your carbon score, and you will be restricted or permitted based on that carbon credits that you will have. And we look at China, where they have a patchwork system, a social credit system, which is patchwork. It's not nationwide, the whole thing, but it's different systems that work together. It's different in different areas, and they shame people. There's billboards every, if someone's done something wrong, if they've not paid a certain debt, they're publicly shamed. So people need to read and research and understand where it's come from. Look at ID 2020, look at the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, know the 17 goals and 169 targets, and know exactly who the World Economic Forum are, because beneath that, like I say, there's other organizations like the Trilateral Commission, Club of Rome.
What is there, 17 goals?
17 goals, 169 targets within those goals.
Is that worldwide?
That is 193 countries, member states that have signed up to it in 2015. The United Nations, we obviously have unelected ambassadors that attend, that are usually they've come from being civil servants to being elected to be ambassadors. And they're lifelong diplomats that go and represent the peoples of the world and sit together and make decisions that then global governments follow. And they act like they're just recommendations or whatever. We've signed up for it. That's what's happening. And we're seeing it reflected in national policy as we are worldwide. Australia, they're using mainly fraud, because, they don't have the immigration issues that we have. They're using mainly fraud and things like combating paedophilia as to why they need this digital verification. Canada, immigration as well as fraud and other things. America, and here the original excuse was combating illegal immigration, which was potentially 1.8 million, up to 1.8 million undocumented individuals in this country, which is a 1.46% problem. And they want to roll out a digital identity on the UK Gov wallet, which it will be one token of many. So this digital ID, when I talk about it, I'm talking about this wallet, this app of apps. The Gov UK wallet is what I'm talking about. This is going to be all encompassing, people tracking super cookie. And I know it's, hard to wrap people, get your head around this kind of stuff and why it's such a problem. That's why people need to read, take accountability for their knowledge and know where it's come from.
What do people read and where do they get their knowledge then? For people who's maybe listening just now or watching, where can they go for this information just to look at it themselves and then just make your decision without just being given the decisions to make from the government,
No, of
from
course.
what you see in media?
Yeah, think critically. I mean, my website, massnoncompliance.com, I mean, I've started my law degree again, well, my second year of my law degree, so I'm slightly behind on it, but you can read lots of the documents, the legislation and things on there under the architect. So massnoncompliance.com, and I will unwrap the layers and go further. For now, you can read about the Tony Blair Institute, United Nations, the World Economic Forum, Labour Together. Read their documents and I translate those. So massnoncompliance.com. On there as well, there's a film called The Agenda by Oracle Films. And I think that's something that should be a starting point for everybody, The Agenda. You can Google it on YouTube or whatever, go on YouTube and put The Agenda by Oracle Films and Mark Sharman. And that is a fabulous introduction and overview as to what we're actually facing in this globalist agenda. All factual, all well-researched, incredible. And know that, we've got to know what we're facing to know how we can fight back right and win. So I would listen to watch the agenda and then look at all the people that are in that film and look them up.
Yeah, Tony Blair's son's involved. I think he gets 350 million if it gets rolled out in the UK.
They're all exactly.
Agenda 2030. What is Agenda 2030 for people who don't know?
It is the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. It's literally what it is. It's goals and targets, an agenda of things that these globalists want to achieve by the year 2030. So it was originally they had Agenda 21 and they had what they called the Millennium Development Goals. In 2000 until 2015, they gave themselves 15 years to achieve no poverty, no hunger, no trafficking, all these things that they claim to want to stop that sound wonderful and humanitarian. They didn't quite achieve that. So Agenda 21 turned into the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And that's, allegedly from the United Nations. And 193 countries have signed up in agreement to these 17 targets. So these 17 goals with 169 targets that on the surface look like it's all about, equity and sustainability. And a lot of it's based around climate change. Now, there's, debate in the scientific community. I'm not an expert, but it's tripe. So I don't buy into any of that. And it essentially, it's a control agenda. And the World Economic Forum are heavily involved in, again, unelected, but they plant the seeds and influence policy, and pretty much every world leader, every president, every VP, every prime minister, you can probably Google and there'll be a member of the World Economic Forum. So it's this, like I say, above the level of nation agenda that 193 countries have signed up for in lockstep and rolling it out.
So what happens if digital ID gets rolled out all around the world and everybody's on it? What happens to individuals? What happens to their life?
See, I think this is where listing some countries, and first of all, a lot of it's not mandated. A lot of it's a test bed to see how people get on with it and comply with it. So they'll test different things in different countries. But life will be totally tracked and traced, and it will be a permission state. That's all it will be. The freedom as we know it will be no more. And when you understand that they literally want to tokenize and own and control everything in the sea, everything on the land, everything in the air, they want control over everything. Again, it's written down. Sounds crazy. It's not. And you don't have to look very far, but it's freedom as we know it. And we've already been hugely restricted over the last 6 years. I mean, we were talking about the protest laws and the legislation, public order laws, right? That, the police now have far-reaching powers oppressive powers to restrict protest because it works. So they make it as difficult as possible. But yeah, freedom as we know it will disappear. I mean, you've got mainstream campaigners. Look at Big Brother Watch. Go and look at Big Brother Watch website. If you just want to get a bit surface level, go and look at that. And they talk about Big Brother in a surveillance state. And it's absolutely true. Everything will be tracked and traced, and everything will be permission based. And when you learn about central bank digital currency and the potential for geofencing and what they do want to achieve, which is literally written down, and everything tokenized on the supply chain, you tokenized. We're all tokens. And everything about our life is tokenized.
I've seen people in the comments saying they're just going to comply straight away because they feel as if they're already followed and watched and everything's tracked on their phone anyway.
Yeah, but they again, it's training, isn't it? It's like, it's a test of compliance. It's like training. What they've done, social media, they've got, the people have to, I've not been on a dating app in years and years, so I don't know, but I've heard that you have to, the biometrics, like you have to sort of move, when you're signing up to prove that it's you, and you're not some like crazy stalker or whatever, that you have to, you prove with biometrics. That's what they've done. They've trained us with technology to get used to these things, to make us think that it's nothing more than what they're telling us that it is. So it's just a digital ID, so you can prove your right to work and right to rent. Well, that doesn't sound too bad, does it? But that's why people have to understand the agenda beneath it, which is very hard. When I say, I'm not an academic, I read and I research, but I'm very reluctant sometimes to make certain statements. But I want people to read for themselves, and it is there. It's available to read. You go on the World Economic Forum website, United Nations, look at the Sustainable Development Goals, and just think critically. That, this carbon score stuff, which is happening on, I don't know if you've got banking apps on your phone and it tracks your carbon score, that will be just everyday life. And you will, they don't want us to eat meat. Look what Bill Gates is doing here. It's like half of the land in America, and they're trying to destroy farmland. They want us to be completely reliant on, this lab grown, lab made, 3D printed fake meat. They tried to stop cows farting. Can we, people need to give their heads a wobble and look at the ridiculousness of what's going on.
But what is the carbon footprint for people?
Right. For those, well, the whole climate change thing, right? They think that there's too much carbon on the planet, right? We're creating too much. Our carbon footprint, we need to be. when I think, I don't know the exact figures, and this is what frustrates me, but we're like, the UK, for example, is responsible for like 0.01%. Apparently, we need carbon is life, and we need it. And they're making us believe the climate change thing, is catastrophically bad, that we're all contributing, like hairspray, whatever, hairdryer, like products that you use, and a carbon footprint being how much carbon is used, generated in the production of a product, for example. Like we do it just sat here breathing, right? So what's the carbon credit score of my jeans? It's like the wind farms that they're making over in China. It's mad. So they just that carbon score is how much carbon is expended on a particular thing, and they want us to be carbon neutral. So essentially,
where's the biggest place in the world now with digital ID? Is it China?
Yeah, I mean, they're with the social credit system, and their patchwork of their social credit system, it would look to China.
What is the social credit system for people who don't know? Because there's a lot of stuff. You'll see people being homeless because they're not following certain rules, or maybe spoke out against the government. Like people are getting kicked out in the street. They can't go to supermarkets and buy stuff because they've said certain things. Yeah. And we all know the UK now is one of the biggest in the world. I think it is the biggest for people being charged for saying things online. But with China, is that what they're trying to imply in the UK? The same exact movement from what they've got in China with the digital ID and the credit scoring and.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of fear mongering and sort of fake news around, what happens in China. Like I say, it's a patchwork of systems, and it's not entirely nationwide. There's people out live out in the middle of nowhere that aren't affected by, in their rice paddies or whatever. But it is social credit. you essentially are expected to be a good citizen. You know, don't drink much alcohol, don't eat much chocolate, do some charity work, go and do your 9 to 5, work really hard, maybe do a little bit of overtime. Just be a good citizen in what they consider to be a good citizen. So if you do charity work, you get your extra credits. Pay your debts and your loans. You know, you've got a good credit rating. So think about what credit rating is like. So yeah, if you have credit and you pay off your bills early, your social credit score would be higher because you're a good citizen. You're not in debt. So then the minute someone, for example, might lose their job and not be able to pay for their credit or their credit card, their social credit score would get lower and lower. And then they would be publicly shamed if they missed a payment. And you're penalized in a sense. So if you drink and you smoke and you eat chocolate, your social credit score is lower. But if you don't drink and you don't smoke and you don't eat chocolate and you eat super healthy and you do charity work, your bus ticket is cheaper and you can fly. You know, your social credit standing is higher and you can do more things, and you are restricted if you are not seen to be a good citizen. And obviously you commit crimes, well, you're fucked.
And then that's not too bad though. Like, being good, you get perks. You know, I understand what you're saying as well, but I'm trying to look at it from every angle for give people an understanding. Listen, I'm
And that's
for it
how
as
that-
well, and
yeah.
I'm against it. But I already think we're controlled. I don't even think we're free with all this stuff.
No,
I think we're free. I think we're totally controlled with technology, phones, TVs,
Yeah.
radios. We're already caught up in a system. We're paying bills. We're in debt. It's just all fucking madness.
But if
anyway.
we knew where it was
If we knew,
going,
yeah.
if we knew where it was going 20 years ago, I'm pretty sure we'd all say, leave me with my Nokia 3310. I'm good. If we knew what the future was bringing. And this is why, you know, you can see, of course, people can talk about the convenience, like, you know, Keir Starmer said about rummaging through a drawer. You would have to rummage through a drawer to look for a utility bill to prove your home address, for example. You can just go flash it on my phone. I get it. The convenience. They sell everything based on convenience. Everything's based on ease and safety. So the saying, you know, the online harms or online safety, whatever they called it in the end, it flitted around. Is all about protecting children online and paedophilia. It is not. It is just, you've just said it about the arrest. What is it, 12,000 people being arrested for tweets? That's what it's about. We're seeing what it's about already. The two-tier policing that everybody's talking about. We are seeing jury trials going, right? For certain offences, you don't get a jury trial anymore. They are taking things away from us bit by bit, and they have been for a couple of decades, probably, way before 2015, because they already had this plan. Say back 2000, right? But the digital ID plan was first written down in 2015. And you look at what they want to achieve, and you look at Klaus Schwab, or listen to Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. He's not the chairman anymore, it's Larry Fink. But he bases a lot on the Chinese model. You think it would be great to, you know, society would be safer and more convenient if we had that same model here. And that's exactly how they'll sell it. And clearly, people like me need to do a better job of telling people what it's all about. Clearly, because what I did in London on Saturday, it was my second protest. The first one was epic. We marched. We had a very clear message, no digital ID. We marched because it was in the headlines, because Keir Starmer had just said what he said. But what I did Saturday just gone, I don't think, not only London wasn't ready, but I don't think people are ready. And the information, I need to deliver it better. Because everything that you're saying is what most people are going to say.
Of course.
So isn't it great what they're doing in Australia with, 16-year-olds not having social media? Listen, like I said, we should have stopped at Nokia 3310s.
But we didn't.
We didn't. And the whole point, this advancement, there's a lot of stuff that I think with technology, we could go all kind of kooky, but I'm not going to do that.
Why?
But because, as in, where does it come from? Do you know what I mean? You think that there's certain things.
Be you. They take people on a journey and make them question things that they've never questioned before. So don't worry about saying things that are too fucking mad. I've interviewed cannibals.
No, I know. That was brilliant.
What you say is PG.
Yeah.
You know?
But I was like, wow, he actually said that he wanted to tear into flesh with his teeth. Like I said, I'm not going to hold back about Bill Gates. I'd want it to be very painful if I, lynch him. Oh, is that incitement?
What do you think though if people don't comply? Because people are easily manipulated, and I always say this, and I have to keep repeating it, because look what happened to lockdown. Now, if people don't comply, all you need to do, to majority of men, listen, well, you can't go to a football match if you don't sign up for digital ID. There you've got half your men, because people just want to go to work or travel. You've got their travel and your sports. That you've already got a big percentage of the UK then signing up because they just don't want any drama.
That's what they did with the jabs. Remember, Leeds Festival, for example, you couldn't go to Leeds Festival unless you'd had your first and second jab, I believe, right? And that's exactly what they'll do. They'll say you won't be able to go to football matches. You'll have to prove digitally who you are. It's like there's Airbnb, I think, are doing it. Some booking websites doing it now. You have to digitally verify who you are before you can book something. Flights, access to festivals, to football games, bread and circuses. That's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be access and convenience. So they're going to, and it's by stealth. So, for example, company directors are now being told to verify themselves digitally. People just don't want to do it because their data isn't safe. There's all this surface level stuff that we need to be concerned about. But yeah, 8 million, whatever, company directors now are going to have to gradually, when their confirmation statement is due, verify themselves digitally. We cannot trust the technology. We know it's just surface level, unsafe, like hackable. It's a hacker's playground. So yeah, I can't remember what we were saying.
What do you think will happen for people who don't comply?
It's coercion and exclusion, right? You'll be gradually excluded, like we were when we didn't take the jab, like we were when we didn't wear masks. It's almost exactly the same thing in a sense but it will be worse. It will be. Yeah, they've done it by stealth with one login, and by 2027 they're saying that any interaction you want to have with the state you've got to do via one login, right? By the end of 2027, so one login being the de facto digital ID because it's all you verified digitally online. If you want to interact and pay your taxes and get your pension and get your state benefits and all this kind of stuff, they will gradually chip away at certain groups of people. So they've done it to company directors, they'll do it to pensioners next, they'll do it, they're doing it to the veterans. Trialing the veterans card on the Gov wallet. So bit by bit, they will chip away. But I think this is where the most important thing, which I had a bit of an epiphany, not like I didn't know, but is the education specifically about what it is, because there's a lot of semantics and there's a lot going on with how people are describing what this is. And some people aren't ready for the cold, hard truth of it all. But people need to know what life's like if they do comply with it, because I'll be damned if I'll be dragged to a tyrannical surveillance state hell, dystopia, digital gulag, because people decided to go along with it like they did with the jabs. That was hell in 2020 to 2022 and after. And I won't let other people who have a blind faith and a blind trust and haven't done their research and reading drag me into that. And I know all the names that I'm going to be called again, but I've had that for 5.5 years and I don't much care about it. But people, they need to know what they're not complying with, because they need to know what it means. So all the questions you're asking me, I don't think I expected you to ask me those questions.
Yeah, I think
or to try and put a positive, but that's exactly what's going to happen. So I need to get better.
Yeah, I need to ask you the questions that other people will be thinking, because not everybody thinks the same we do. So it's important to give everybody an understanding of the pros and the cons. You're saying there's no pros, but people need to understand, okay, well, what if we don't sign up? What if we sign up? Like, we need to understand everything, because I think people are going to comply anyway. I know you don't like when I say that, but I can only just go with what the patterns are through life and through history and how people sign up.
But that's because people,
wars, of course, but people still do it anyway.
They do, but mainly because they don't understand. I'm pretty sure that if we play it right, and we don't need to manipulate people, we just need to tell the truth. We don't need to do what the government do. We don't need any fear mongering and propaganda. People trusted their government and they took a jab, and look what happened. They trusted the government, the NHS, their consultant, whoever it was that they trusted, and look what happened. Because I think that there's many more people out there who've been harmed, or know somebody who's been harmed or been killed by what they were told was 100% safe and effective. They have been lied to repeatedly, and people need to look to other countries as well, where, for example, our COVID inquiry here was happening. Well, there was similar going on in America, and Fauci was being questioned, and he literally said that he made up the 6 meter rule, the 6 foot 2 meter rule, social distancing, plucked it out of thin air and made it up. And people were militant and they were shaming their neighbors for not doing it. People do need to look back to that time and think, why did I comply? Because I didn't ask questions. And the same thing's happening now. Ask questions, do your research, and don't. It's very easy to be, they branded us anti-lockdown, anti-mask, anti-vax, conspiracy theorists. Far right was a slur that we had very early doors. Discard those labels. This is not a political issue. This is non-partisan. This has got nothing to do with left and right. But they're rolling it out now when we are the most divided. I don't think we've been this divided in a long time.
We fell into the trap with the divide with white and black and Islam, Christianity. We fell right into their trap, and with 8 billion people on the planet, we're so lost, and that's why I question it, and that's why I think it's great speaking out against it. But in my own opinion, I just think people will comply, no matter how much knowledge they have. People still had a rough understanding of lockdown and still followed suit because they just got on with what their neighbour says, their grandparent says. That yes, there was big protests, but then that fizzles as well, and then it's the next thing they've got planned. But
this is where, so when you're on the inside of something, like we're gonna see things differently because you do what you do and I do what I do. I went out in 2020 when there was 20 people, not even 20 people outside Parliament, then 100 whatever at Hyde Park Speakers Corner in May 2020, and then 100,000 a few months later, and it built and it built and it built. And the fact is that we got together. We knew that we weren't crazy. We knew that we weren't alone. And it was great, but we were the most undivided in that we got up to 1.2 million people on the streets 18 months later. So it grows, information is shared, awareness it grows, awareness is shared. We've got many more people speaking out now. The podcasters and the people that are doing things that they're doing now, and the truth that's being spoken, even though I might not like the messenger or the person that's saying it, I'm grateful that there's much more truth out there. People are questioning their government, people are questioning authority, and that's what everybody has to do. And to say that everybody's going to comply, I think they've tested us with the jabs, with the masks, with the mandates, with the lockdowns, and people followed suit, but we all didn't. We didn't all comply.
Over 90% of the world got the vaccine. That's a massive percent. Yes.
Well, how's the
Well, they says they rolled out fucking billions and billions of the vaccine. So they say over 90% of the world got the vaccine. Listen, I could be wrong, possibly, but it's still a big percentage who got it anyway. Now, this is where I'm at, because I know the way the government operate. I know the steps that they try and put ahead for people to fall into the trap and just give up. That's the majority of people. No matter how much information's out there, no matter how many people go to these protests, they still follow suit. They still get in line.
But it's that critical mass. We don't need everybody to not comply. We don't need everybody. This is the thing. You've got this critical mass, this number. And I do think, like I said, maybe people weren't ready for the information and what I specifically did on Saturday, because there was media blackout after the first one when I was on Sky News on the morning of, and we got all that mainstream media attention, which was absolutely brilliant. They don't want it either, right? They don't want digital ID either. But yes, the knowledge and the information and the awareness is very important, but you do not need 100% of people to not comply. I think we probably only need about 20, 30% to say categorically, firmly, no, be strong, we're not doing it. Not to go off and jog on and live off grid, because that kind of utopia is not going to exist either. So this we are facing off the biggest and darkest tool of total control, like scalable servitude. This is the darkest time we've ever faced. I think more and more people will come to learn that over the next several months, maybe a little bit longer. I need to get better at communicating it. Like, I realize that now, because people aren't inside my head and I go through my own shit that I have to deal with. I've got life to live as well. I've got shit to deal with. I'm not here I can't do this for much longer because I'm at the end of it. But we don't need everybody to not comply. You know what? Some of you want to go off and comply, go do it. But and if you want to go and argue about, you'll be arguing about immigration and religion when you lock down a digital gulag in a couple of years' time, and you help build that cage around you. If people are still distracted by politics, this is above the level of nation. No one is a savior. not Nigel Farage, not Rupert Lowe, not Ben Habib, none of them.
Yeah, they're all full of shit.
They're all full of shit.
Yeah.
And it's that whole, everything that's happening in Westminster, the government, parliament, they are puppets of the globalists. They follow globalist diktat. It's literally written down. They do not come up with this and manage our country. Or the United Kingdom, they simply don't. They are puppets.
The pendulum swings every 48 years. So when they think as if the masses are going against them, they'll just bring someone in who'll say, "Well, stop trans people, trans women doing women's sports," and people go, "Yeah, he's our savior, Donald Trump." They're all full of shit. They're all part of the problem. It's the people behind the curtain who's calling the shots, who are being paid. These people are just all actors. And what happens is we think, "Yep, that's our savior." No one's a saviour. Be your own saviour. But that's what you need to understand as well. That's what you're going to need to understand. You probably already do. Is not everybody thinks like you. So you're already researched and being knowledgeable. I've got to think for the person who doesn't know this, and the person who's scared to speak out, and the person who's scared of governments and to maybe lose their house and lose their car or maybe lose their child with the threats that the media put out there, So we've got to think for everyone. And it's not that I'm against you. No. I'm for digital. I'm for people being not compliant against digital ID. I was against lockdown. I was against the vax. I was against all that. But on the other hand, we need to understand not everybody sees the way we do, because in life as well, we can be wrong. So people got to question exactly what we're saying as well, because we could be full of shit. We could be the tinfoil hat wearing people who are fucking loopy. Because these labels and putting...
Well, I mean, this is the thing. So I've been 100% vindicated in everything that I've stood for and said. Go back and scroll through my social medias and my Facebook and see what I was saying back in 2020. I was 100% right because I did the research. I had my head in the data. I was 100% correct in 2020 onwards, right? And I'm correct about this, and I'm not articulating it well because, like I say, I've got shit in my life going on as well. Like, I don't need to be trying to save everybody's life right now. I don't need to do it because I'm not even sure humanity is actually that is salvageable. Like, I'm at that point now where if people want to comply and they want to go along and say, I don't want to lose my house and my mortgage, you know what? Use whatever excuse you want, but take a look at yourself. Everybody has to have that line. You have to be able to stand for something someday, because you're not complying. Your life will not be easier. Your life will be the worst you could possibly imagine if you do comply with it. If you think complying makes your life easier, it doesn't. You won't have the freedoms that you think that it will buy you, because it won't. And we don't have the time, and I don't have the patience. I don't anymore. And I know people won't actually pay attention. They won't actually go and read, because I know what people are like. I care about that critical mass. I don't care about 100% of people anymore. I don't think humanity, I think humanity's failed. I think humanity's already failed, test after test after test. And I care about the people who are willing to take that risk. So if you're not willing to, potentially not be able to pay your mortgage for a couple of months, you've got to stand for something. But with the information, I think that, like I say, one of my lessons has been, like, it's very hard for me to articulate right now, and I don't know how long that this is going to go on for, but I've had a lot of shit. I sit here, like, I know not so much as you, but I've got 13 convictions, 16 arrests, one conviction, well, this should be 14. I have stood for humanity and for freedom and for people for the last 5.5 years, and every single thing was worth it. Every single thing was worth it. But I have been through absolute hell, and I have been 100% vindicated because I was 100% right. As was Dr. Mike Eden, as was Dr. Andrew Kaufman, as was Dr. Rashid Buttar, who's dead, as was Magafuli. There's a lot of people who are 100% right. We're not going to get any thanks for anything, but believe us and listen to us now, because I don't have the patience nor the inclination to actually listen to people who sit there and go, but I've got to do this and I've got to do that. Yeah, I had shit to do as well.
Why are you losing patience with it?
Because humanity is literally,
But you've got to understand, there's a lot of goodness in the world, and the majority of people are good as well, but the majority of people are being fooled by the people in power, by the greed.
Yeah, but there's not that much of an excuse for it. When the information is right in front of you, and I think this is why I say people need to take accountability for their own knowledge and they have to take accountability for themselves. Stop having that blind faith in government and using excuses as to why you didn't know. You've got time to learn. I've tried with the website, with massnoncompliance.com, to put to translate some of the information. I probably do need to do a better job at communicating it. Of course I do. and that's where I intend now to invest my energy. Like, I'm done with the street stuff and tolerating a lot of shit that I've been put through. Like, the information is what needs to be put out there in a certain way, and not now like getting all fiery and feisty, but I'm sat here with you and I just feel a type of way about it.
Good on you, though. It's
Right.
good to be passionate about
Yeah,
something, but
but-
don't lose yourself completely with it as well, because life does go on, and that's the difficult thing, because it's trying to find that fine line before going insane
Yeah.
and trying to
But
do the
life
right
won't
thing.
go
But
on.
Why is it took its toll on you? Like, what's been happening over the last few years? Is it anything you want to talk about, or is it anything that's, because it is difficult, because they do scrutinise, they do come after you, they will tarnish. I'm going through it myself, but the main thing is to keep your head above water. And and you can't let it bend or break you. But is it taking its toll when you're trying to speak out, and
Yeah.
you're getting frustrated that not everybody's listening?
Yeah, I mean, I get frustrated. I mean, I get frustrated sometimes because I know that I maybe don't make as much sense as I'd like to make, because because of what I have gone through. I've like, I was completely broken in 2022 because I had tried so hard, and when you sacrifice the way that I do, you can't hear those excuses that people say, but I want to keep my job, or I don't want to, like, the risks that some of us did take just to like build that awareness and get the information out there. Like, if I understand I understand the sacrifices, because my life is never going to be the same.
Do you feel underappreciated for what you're trying to achieve?
It's not that I've even ever wanted appreciation. I think I realized in 2020 to 22, which was the toughest time, I think.
How so?
Well, I mean, we were literally locked down. Like I say, like leaving the house every day, like the abuse that I would get every day. I lived in London. I lived in central London. It was the hate that you were getting when you were trying to save lives and save humanity. It's hard to carry on. It's hard to want to care, and I did care, and I do care. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be doing it. I realize I don't articulate myself that well.
You say that though, but you do.
Do I?
Yeah. Look, listen to the way I speak. No one that can understand a fucking word I say.
God,
And I'm not the
asking me
most
questions, I'm like-
educational, but you've got to, this is what the thing though, that people who are giving you shit, in their mind, they think you're the enemy. They think you're killing their gran. They think that the
Yeah, but
world's in lockdown because of you. So it's not that, again, people are bad. And like I say, I'm siding with you, but I've got to understand, and you've got to understand, everybody's mindsets see the world differently. There's a study of the brains do see things differently.
They do, and
so the people who hate you not wearing a mask, they think you're bad.
Yeah, but
because
I
they're-
still went out.
Of course you did.
I still went out, and I still went to have those very calm, very compassionate, very, empathetic conversations with people, where I would try to communicate with them. I was very, very soft. Like, I was very aware that people were scared of me because I wasn't wearing a mask. I was very aware of that. And it's smiling at people and being kind. That's what, there was a way around that. And there was just the science that you could educate people on. Now, that's one thing, being hated by, society, and being shamed and being snitched on and having all those things going on, because people are so scared and so fearful because their government and whoever in authority is telling them they should be scared and they should be fearful. That's horrific. That's heartbreaking to see that that's how people reacted and responded, because I didn't. And I don't expect everybody to be me. In that sense, that's one side of it, where people are so scared that you are a threat. You're the reason why. Now we know that I'm not the reason why. I still took the hate and I still took the hits, and we are vindicated. And I don't need, people to come and thank me for what I've done, or to have, Keir Starmer. No one's going to stand in that building and say, oh, by the way, the anti-vax conspiracy theorists were right. Like, that's never going to happen. We just have to live with what's come out. And there's still people out there that do believe everything that they were told. Still, there's this denial about it. But now what we're facing off is much darker than anything. It's not temporary. It's not lockdown for a couple of years. It's not masks for a little while. That was all a test of compliance. What we're facing off now is a future of total dystopian digital control in every way. Your life is going to be entirely tracked, traced, controlled, mapped. You know, you will live in a permission state. You won't be freer if you comply. Life won't be easier if you comply. And that's the information that needs to be get across. It needs to be communicated in a very short space of time, because we just simply don't have long. When it's the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, by 2030 they want to achieve these things. You know that there's a clock, there's a time limit. And I don't mind being hated by people who I know one day will wake up. I know one day everyone will see what we are talking about, because I know that it's true, it's there, it's written down. Like, I know what we're facing. I don't care about a bit of temporary hate, even if it's half a decade's worth of hate, which I've had from some people. But what frustrates me is the destruction, I think, on people who are allegedly on our side. That's the worst, is when there's people who are telling you to look over here and distracting you with something over here. So yeah, we care about digital ID, but we need to go and talk about immigration a bit more. We need to go and have an argument about religion a bit more, about faith a bit more. Like the distractions that are going on when we're literally facing off the biggest existential threat that humanity has ever faced. And people might think that's completely loopy, but that is exactly what it is. That's why I set the website up. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I believe in it. But we are so divided politically and otherwise now. So divided. Everyone's fearful of everyone, worse than I've ever seen it. Even in COVID, even the looks I used to get when I wasn't wearing a mask. You know, and I felt for that older person on the bus. I did. I felt for them, but I knew that your mask, it wasn't doing anything. And second of all, don't even think that there was a new pathogen. Right? I have beliefs about that time that made I never got tested. I never got sick. I never got jabbed. I'm good. I didn't PCR test. I didn't put ethylene oxide up my nose. You know, so...
But I didn't do that.
No.
But I wasn't getting upset about the people who done it.
No, I was out trying to save their lives, though. I wasn't
because you seem very passionate and fiery about it. But in the same hand...
I am now.
Life goes fucking on. What people do with their own choices is down to them.
Yeah,
yes,
but
they
it's
can try and wake up. I know, but it is because life... There's over 8 billion people on the planet. So they say 9 billion. I don't even know if those numbers are real because the streets seem empty to me. But sometimes life is to find that fine balance of trying to enjoy it as well, because life goes by too fast and you've completely lost yourself in your craft. And listen, I think it's amazing what you're doing. I think it's very brave. You should be proud. I think it's great, these conversations. But sometimes you can completely lose your mind in it. And you think,
I 100% have lost my mind. You know, we've spoken about this. You know, I got to a point where it got so bad and that I didn't want to be here anymore. I tried to take my own life. And that was the day I stopped drinking, on the 29th of September, 2022. I think the last drink I had was on the 28th. And then that was it. No more, because I need to be strong, because I need to fight this fight. And I think I'm not angry at the people who I've tried to save. You know, I tried to save people and tried to save lives in 2020 to 22. And then I platformed those who were injured or bereaved from the thing that I was trying to save them from, because I wanted to give them a voice, because nobody was listening to them. I care about people. I care about humanity, but I'm not trying now to save 100% of it. That was the difference. I was hugely idealist at the beginning. In 2020, for me, I was hugely idealist. I thought that everybody was even worth saving. You know, I don't believe that. We don't need 100% of people to not comply with this. We just need that critical mass, which I think, like I say, even 20, 30% would make a huge difference. But we need that 20 or 30% to actually have the courage to stand up and face it off and say, no, we won't do this, not to run away and live off grid. That won't happen. You'll get a temporary bit of what, you know, alleged utopia for a year or two, and then they're coming for you too. So I just think when you see how dark it is, it's hard not to get passionate about it. And also, I don't give a fuck what people think about me anymore. I don't care how I come across. I don't care what people watching me. I'm like,
fuck them.
There's going to be haters when this goes out, or comments below about me.
That means we're doing something.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
And
the bottom line is, even the haters as well. Like, they're just doing their job. They're just fucking doing their
Oh,
job.
they're actually doing their job. These people, some of these people are paid. Like some of these relentless haters and trolls I've had for years are absolutely paid to do what they do to destroy me. Now, I've given absolutely everything. And this is when, I do get a bit passionate. I do get a bit upset.
Good on you, though.
Because when people talk about losing their job and their mortgage, like, so what? You have to draw a line. You have to be willing to lose something, because anyone that stands up to this is going to have to be willing to lose something, because I've lost everything. And when you are fighting for humanity and you are genuine and you are sat there in a shitty little studio that's barely habitable and you're suing your landlord because it's that bad, and you're trying to study your law degree and you're trying to, make positive change. And I know that we can, because I've done it. I've seen it in real time. It's happened. We have pushed back certain things. We have changed the world literally in the last 5 years. We absolutely have. This is mass awakening going on that I think is unstoppable. But life is so worth living and enjoying. And yes, but we need to fight for what we want to enjoy, because we can talk about people needing to do this and doing that. But, life is beautiful, blah, blah. Yeah, it is, but it won't be. So I want to keep that. I want to keep that unknown beauty. I'm not married. I don't have children. I'd love that, but I don't know if it's on the cards for me. But I'd rather keep fighting, doing what I'm doing to make sure that, we're not living in a digital gulag.
How did you try and kill yourself?
I drank and drank and drank for a good few days. And then took lots of every kind of tablet I had. After my dad died, I took his whole kind of like pharmacy that he had. So I don't know everything and anything.
Do you think that's what pushed you over the edge, your dad dying?
No, I think my dad's here. My dad's in my locket with the angel wings. No, I think fighting for people and wanting people to see that I'm, fighting for them and I'm genuine and I've had this desperate need to make, for example, my mother. I've always wanted to make my mother proud. Like, I love her to bits. I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for my mother, but I've always wanted to make her so, so proud. And I felt like I was disappointing people by not doing enough, and people were saying things about me that were so hateful, and the bullying was so fucking horrific from a handful of people that I literally named. I did a video. I'd already taken tablets. I did a video. I posted it online. I got fucking obliterated. And if I hadn't left my front door open and my mum hadn't called an ambulance, I'd be dead. And I just wanted people to know that I was doing my best. I wanted people to know that I was genuine. I'm not MI5. I'm not MI6. I'm not a Zionist shill. I'm not like any of the things that I have been called. But the hate was extreme, and it's not even from the other side. It's not from other people. It's not from people that wanted to go and get jabbed who were wearing a mask shouting at me in the street. I could take that all day long. Buses wouldn't let me on. I can take, drivers would just keep driving if you weren't wearing a mask. I faced that off. I don't care about that. But when you've got people allegedly on your side, and now I'm so convinced that most of them are actually paid, because they are relentless and they're fucking criminal. And I would like to have believe that words don't hurt, but that's bullshit.
Yeah, words are just as powerful and hurtful as fucking actually breaking somebody's bones,
repeatedly. And it's like being beaten over and over and over again. And I can say that because I've been beaten, and I've been beaten by the police. I have been through absolute hell to not even talk about it sometimes, to get arrested and come out and then just start organizing another rally or a march or an outreach or something, just to get on with the job and not sit there and go, oh, I had this, this experience in custody and I'm going to talk about it for the next 6 fucking years. No, I got on with the job of saving humanity, of trying to wake humanity up and saving them. So the hate and shit got so much, and yeah, it broke me. And, I gave my head a wobble when I came round, and I decided that was it. I'm not going to drink anymore, because drink makes me weak. It was my emotion. It was an emotional crutch. I could take it or leave it. I wasn't an addict. I literally could drop it for a few months, and I'd go out. I was a binger, but it numbed everything that was going on. Then I was too busy being hungover and feeling shit the next day to care about what was going on. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't check social media because I couldn't look at my phone. It was too bright for my eyes. And
I think you've got to lead by example. I think you've got to cut away our negatives, because I couldn't follow someone who's speaking a good game but yet not following a good path themselves if they're
Yeah.
still drinking and taking drugs. And I'm not saying everybody to give up drink, but it is a big indicator
Yeah.
of how someone's struggling, of how much they're drinking, you know. And I think when you do stop drinking and quit all the madness, you do see things a little differently, and it gives you that inner confidence. So you've nearly killed yourself, abused online, lost everything, jailed, beaten. Why are you still doing it?
yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, because I care, like I really care. All I want is for humanity to prevail. Like I really, really do. There's so much evil and darkness in the world. And I'm not saying like they've got these grandiose fucking plans like that allegedly where they want to end poverty and end trafficking. Is there any true end to all this pain? I think you speak of people who are Christian and they'll give you a completely different answer. I just want people to be free and happy, and I just want humanity to prevail. I want people who give a shit to be the ones who govern us, for want of a better word. I just want truth, and I want justice, and I want freedom for everyone. I'm not stupid though, but I truly care about humanity, and I care about children. I care, you know, you see children being poisoned and killed and blown to pieces because of men and money and war and what this world has become over the last few hundred years.
What do you think makes the world a better place then? If you could change 3 things, what would you change to make it
Oh my God, that's
a
a
great
different
place?
question.
Yeah, well, that's why we're here.
What was the first question?
What's 3 things you would change to make the world a better place? If you were in charge of the world, if someone gave you...
Oh, well, me being in charge of the world would be a start. Genuinely, because I give a shit about people. I think what we need to change is the way the world is run 100%. That's obviously not going to be something that changes overnight. Like I started my law degree because I wanted to change from within, because I thought that we could use our own laws against, you know, our corrupt judiciary, our corrupt parliament, government, changing the way that the world actually runs. Like you've taking sovereignty back and giving it to the people. I'm not saying self-governance. I think there's this utopia, like idealistic, you know, people have this belief that they talk about natural law, like we can all just get along and live with each other. Blah, blah. There's rapists, there's murderers, there's traffickers, there's pedophiles, there's disgusting people on this planet, right? We're not just going to suddenly change that overnight, but we need to completely shake up the system and have people actually running things that give a shit, that we aren't just useless eaters and consumers too. But how long is that going to take? We're going to Guy Fawkes it. But even if we did, then what would happen? Even if we had that V for Vendetta moment, who would replace? The whole world needs a shake up. And this is where shit gets spiritual, because this is where I believe certain things that are outside the power of humans.
I know we've asked, but what should people really research? What should people really look into to then open their mind to then question it and then make a decision before they just comply straight away? Like, what should people really do and take notes? I know you've mentioned your website, but what other things can people do and see and question? Should they come to a protest? Should they drop you a message? Like, what videos should they watch? Like, because I think it's lack of knowledge that makes people scared.
Yeah. I do think it is lack of knowledge, 100%. I think what turns people off sometimes is the fear mongering, and I don't know if I've done that great a job today, but I do think people get a little bit turned off when people are they think that because the powers that be use fear and propaganda as the sales pitch essentially, and then sell you safety and convenience. We don't want to play that game. But taking accountability of their knowledge and learning, yes. And that is why I set the website up. And that's why I have translated even legislation so people could understand it. I would say and tell people and everyone to watch The Agenda, the film The Agenda by Oracle Films and Mark Sharman. It's on my website. It's under The Agenda on a tab on the website. Watch that film. That is a great entry into addressing what we're facing in its entirety, and understanding why they want digital ID. People should watch that film 100%, and then start reading and researching. Look at the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Look at the World Economic Forum. Know thine enemy, know their plan. Understand that the globalists are handing down this diktat, these unelected, unaccountable, including the likes of the World Health Organization, right? They are handing this diktat down to our governments, and they're implementing it. These people are unelected and unaccountable. We didn't vote for them. We're like, I don't know how we got to this point, to be honest, how humanity got to this point, but thousands of years, like you're saying. But yeah, so take accountability, learn, read, know what you're facing. Do not trust anything that any government says. Don't trust anything. Question everything. Be critical. 100% be critical. Do not trust anything. Don't trust what I'm saying. Go read. Be 100% like, I'm going to go and find out for myself. Do join, communities and marches and protests and stuff. I mean, right now, I don't think that's the way. This first time I've said this, by the way, in 5.5 years. Right now, we're not there yet. We can protest and march. I learned on Saturday what I was doing then. I just was so impatient. When I platformed those people I platformed and had those speeches, and with what I dealt with the sabotage and all that shit, the UK is not ready yet for that. Right? So right now, learn, understand. ID 2020, UN Agenda 2030, World Economic Forum, learn, and go on my website, massnoncompliance.com, right? I will unwrap more and more and more layers, understand what we are fighting, to understand how we're going to win. Because I just think awareness and knowledge, and I have now reframed things for myself. Like, I'm frustrated now because I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, okay? I'm having a little sulk because I've and I'll sulk by myself all day long.
You can't just live there though. But the good thing is you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to take 2 steps back to reassess again and go, okay, I can maybe change this and change that, because you don't know if you don't try. So it's very important to make those mistakes and push the boundaries and go, yep, that's not working. But the most important thing is don't quit. Don't give up, but also look after your own mental well-being, which is important, because the passion is great, but it's not great if you're fucking broken and you're taking tablets and won't end it yourself, because who
tell you what, nothing would ever get me to that point again. Like, I'm dealing with the hate is off the charts at the moment as well. Like, it really is. But I know you isn't done, but I know, but nothing would ever see me at that point anymore.
And be calculated. Like, people speak shit about me. I will wait.
But I tell you,
I will wait 1 year, 5 years. I don't give a fuck. But see, once I pull the trigger, I won't fucking stop. I will fire shots every 6 months of a year, because I've got ego. I've got proud. I'm proud of what I do and what I've achieved.
Yeah.
People judge me on, he's this or he's that. Well, I know, judge the guy from Glasgow who's raised up in a fucked up life to then creating one of the biggest independent podcasts in the world. Like, people should be fucking questioning the fucking rise up and going, how did he do that? Instead of hate.
Because you got the graft, the work, you graft,
I didn't quit, and I made sacrifice, I made changes to be better and do better.
Yeah.
I'm still a fucking lunatic, I'm still daft, but I'm a fucking decent person who tries to get answers for people to then make better decisions.
So the fuck am I? And I think that this is the point. And what I'm not going to do anymore, because what I actually think is even more damaging, is pretending like there's this fucking false harmony. I'm going to go scorched earth, and I'm going to start telling some truth, because I actually think that people believing something, they have no idea. They sit there and go like, oh, well, why are you in pain? Fuck, I'm not dealing with it anymore. I'm not going to stand next to people that I think are disingenuous, fake, egotistical, like literally in it for moments of virality and a little bit of sensationalism and a bit of, little viral content that you get lots of likes and views. If you're in it for that, you don't give a shit about humanity. I'm not standing next to those people. I'm not promoting those people. I don't want to know those people. You're not a bit of me. I give a shit about humanity. My team and the people that stand next to me give a shit about humanity. That's why they're doing it. That's why we make the sacrifices. That's why I'm being beaten by police and convicted all day long, in and out of court, not talking about it and just cracking on with the job. Those people do not serve us at all. They do not serve humanity, and they do not fucking care. If you're out there just trying to do videos and like you'll do a podcast, that's one thing. But if you call yourself an activist and you're out trying to agitate police and choreograph some moment that you can make it look like you're standing up to the powers that be, but you're actually not. Like, I can't do this acting anymore.
Yeah, but
So
I see that all over social media. People for the
Yeah,
next
but-
bit, people for views, people are doing it, and they're not really creating any change.
They're not creating change, but what I'm not going to do is shut my mouth, because it would be very different within what I do if I'd opened my mouth years ago. If I didn't just decide to get sober and shut up and keep my head down. There's a lot of things I could say about a lot of people that people shouldn't be following.
Do it.
And people shouldn't be trusting in and saying shit about. Like this, I am going to tell some truth. I am, because I think that if I stand for truth and justice and freedom, if I really stand for truth, then I have to speak the truth and stop acting like everything's fine and fucking dandy when it absolutely isn't. So I'm going to go scorched earth on all those people that have caused me so much pain, that have lied about me, and they better fucking get ready, because I'm relentless.
But I think that's where maybe your sort of passion and agitation might come from as well, holding back that sort of stuff that you should be exposing, because once you expose it, you can flip the chapter and move on. The only thing is, when you expose it, expect a backlash. But then if you've already fucking tried to top yourself, there's no really going any further than that anyway. Do you know what I'm saying?
There's nothing that anyone can do or say now. There's absolutely nothing. Like, I am soft as shit. I'm marshmallow on the inside. I've got a heart. I care. I love. I just want to cuddle. Like, most of the time, I just want to cuddle. Like, honestly, like, really, I am super, super, super soft. And people that know me know, my family know, my friends know, I am so soft and I care so much. But I will not be silent anymore for the sake of other people's sensitivities and their false security and this false harmony that they think that exists when it doesn't. Like, I'm strong.
Yeah,
I'm the strongest I've ever been, and yeah, I'll never get to that point ever again.
But quitting alcohol will make you strong, because
it does.
It's something that does to you. Like I said, the only thing I struggle with is eating. I fucking overeat.
Yeah, but I'm like, I said that to you, like, honestly, I've like literally, I haven't worked out since September. I usually work out every day. I love, like, now that it's Christmas, I'm going to eat. I'm going to go and get some meat, and I'm going to eat.
Let's finish on a positive. Give me 3 things you're grateful for.
My mother, because there's no way that I would be the person that I am now were it not for her and all the lessons and all the love. Like, she is incredible, and I wouldn't change her for anything. And my mother, can I put my little sisters in that category as well? Like, the love there from the family, family. But you know, my mother, she's epic. What my dad left behind for me, his words, and what I've learned from my dad that I never, you know, I have a journal that he wrote. I gave him a journal to write, and I am so grateful. I would say to anybody, if you're going to lose a loved one, or you feel you're going to lose a loved one and they've got the capability, give them a book, tell them to write down their life story, tell them to write anecdotes, tell them to write everything down, because that's the one thing I've got from my dad, which is incredible. So that's what I'm grateful for that. That's what you've asked me, isn't it? Like, things I'm grateful for.
Grateful
for. And the third is that I do know, like you said, that there are good people, and very, very good people on this planet. Whatever we are, whether we're skin suits having a human experience, it doesn't matter. I know that there's good people. I'm grateful for all of the love and the support and all the good people and all those who truly care about humanity that are fighting alongside me, even though I might never meet them. There's people in other countries. I am grateful for people who put love above everything and anything else, because they make the world a much, much better place. And, you know, you're all right.
Yeah, thank you.
You're all right, mate.
So you're all right as well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Listen, all we can do is try. We don't always get it right as well. And that's for people watching or listening. It's just question us. We don't, like I say, we could be full of shit. And I'm not educated enough, and I'm not going down the educational route to try and figure it all out, because I've done all that, going down the rabbit hole for 10, 15 years. And I felt as if I was completely losing myself. I was questioning every single thing, and I wasn't enjoying it. I just want to get me back. I want to have a laugh, be a bit crazy. Don't fuck anybody over. Just do your thing, you know, keep rising and just try and be better than I was yesterday. But like I say, I still struggle. I still get up and down. But I think life should be a bit better. You know, I'm doing great. But big things will happen. 2026 will be even bigger and better.
I think 2026 is going to be I can feel it. It's going to be epic. I have learned my lessons. I care. So I'm changing my tack now. I think that education, information, and awareness and sharing that in not the feisty way that I've done it with you today, but it's different because we're chatting. So 2026 is going to be a great year. I do feel positive about the future, as much as I might not look like that. I really, really do. And I thank obviously everyone that's sort of sat there and listened to me kind of basically rant a couple of hours, however long it's been.
For anybody watching that's maybe stuck in a life of struggle, what advice would you have for them?
Life is such a blessing to even wake up and have breath. I don't think there's anything that you can't come out of. If you are sat here now watching this podcast on a smartphone, on a TV, on YouTube, whatever, you have the ability to make things better. Right? There's people in the world that don't have that don't have the ability to change their circumstances in any way, shape, or form. And if you're watching this podcast, I'd say that you probably do. So everybody is capable of the best kind of change. And like you said about drinking, it's one of the best decisions I ever made. And I just think that, yeah, everybody is capable of making things better.
What's your social medias?
Social medias. So I'm Fiona Rose Diamond. On Twitter, I'm at CoveyLeaks. But if you go on to mastoncompliance.com, I've got the social medias all linked at the bottom. So you can just click on there and you go to Fiona Rose Diamond on Facebook, on Telegram, on Instagram. I've never been I've never tried to build a following at all out of this. I've always just done the work and put the work at the forefront.
You need to build a following then to create awareness as well, so you can't contradict yourself.
Well, I've been banned a lot from pretty much every platform that I've had. Obviously, I lost Instagram, I lost Twitter several times over.
You need to play the game.
Yeah, and because like I say, information sharing now. So please do follow me, because I think I know what my plan is. And by the way, I'm not going to say it because some dickhead will swoop right in and try and do the very thing that I know that I want to do and do it badly. And that's where we get a little bit fucked up, is where people try and do things just for their, to get their face out there. But yeah, just share what you can when you see it with everybody.
Fiona, listening, for coming on today and telling your story. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I think you're doing amazing. You should be proud of how far you've come. Make sure you stay in the right path, though, and keep achieving what you want to achieve. I look forward to seeing what you do for the future. God bless, and speak soon.
Thanks, Mush.